Alright. Welcome back to another video. It's not a quick review for once. Let's go. Today, we are ranking my favorite movies. And so the way I rank these, right, let's start with this. The way I rank these is by my enjoyment and by rewatchability. Those are like there are, among other things, there are a lot of other things that I use to rank my movies, but for the most part, it's enjoyment and rewatchability. Um, and that's kind of how I've always ranked things. That's also how I rank video games, TV shows, anime, just like anything in general. I always rank it off of enjoyment and how likely I would be to rewatch it, rather than is it like objectively a good movie, right? I think a lot of these are objectively good movies for the most part, but these are still movies that I really love and enjoy, compared to a lot of other people. So what I did was I went on my Letterboxd account, picked out the 15 movies I think I enjoyed most. There are probably some things that I missed, but for the most part, these are my favorite movies. My favorite movies that I have watched. All right, so let's get started. Number 15, or rather, not even number 15, but the first one on this tier list, because we're doing this in tier list format. It's just decided not to do the normal top 10 format because that'd be kind of boring, in my opinion. Let's start with Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. This is the movie that I watched most recently, because I watched this a couple of days ago. I absolutely love this movie. I watched it again after that. It was phenomenal. I think the reason why the reason why I watched it was because I'm doing a Mission Impossible marathon. I'm recording this video less than 24 hours before going to see Dead Reckoning Part 1, which might be a bad idea. But I did Mission Impossible marathon, and I watched Ghost Protocol for the first time, and the movie is phenomenal. It's my personal favorite Mission Impossible movie that I've seen so far, even over something like Fallout. The thing about Ghost Protocol, I feel like the action is great, the stunts are great. That Burj Khalifa scene is absolutely phenomenal. But I think the thing about Ghost Protocol that I love the most is the team dynamic, right? The team dynamic, you have Grant and Hunt, and I'm forgetting the other two's names, Simon Pegg's character and Paula Patton's character. I'm forgetting their names. But the team chemistry, as starting out as, a couple inexperienced people, a couple people to keep it secrets, one's out for revenge and stuff, right? I think that dynamic of them going from not liking each other all that much to being a really good team and working together really well is really good. I love the dynamic. Also, the sandstorm is one of my favorite parts of the movie. Does the last half of the movie start to fall off a tiny bit? Yes, for sure. But it's still a movie that I enjoy a lot and I really love a lot. So I'm gonna put Ghost Protocol in the honorable mentions because I actually think I do have a good idea of what I want to rank these as. Ghost Protocol unfortunately does not make that top 15, unfortunately. Next up, after a couple of minutes debating whether I actually got that placement right. Next up, another Tom Cruise movie. We have Top Gun Maverick. I really enjoyed this movie. This is another one of those movies where I hadn't seen Top Gun before this movie came out, and so like way before this movie came out. So I think I watched Top Gun a week before the movie came out, knowing that I was going to go see it. I was out of town and stuff. This movie holds a special place in my heart because it's the last movie I saw with my dad in the theater. And I think just everything about this movie is really good. Like, of course, again, action and, camera work and the fact that they're actually driving those planes is great. But it is a genuinely emotional story. And, that dynamic between Maverick and, is it Goose's son or whatever, right? That relationship because of what happened to Goose in the first movie. I think hopefully I'm remembering that correctly because I'm just not sure of myself at all a lot of the time. But I just genuinely just that relationship, that evolution, that dynamic is really, really good. This is another movie that inspired me to in my own writing, in a way, relationship wise. A lot of these other movies, another reason why I choose them is because they inspire me in my own writing. But this movie, I think just overall this is one of those movies where it's perfect. However, I don't enjoy it as much as a lot of people do. I mean, I not enjoy it as much as a lot of people do. What I mean by that is it's a perfect movie. However, I still wouldn't say it's my favorite. It's not my personal favorite. It's still really good though. I would rather watch Ghost Protocol over it though. Next up, the original Superman from 1978, I think. This movie is just great. It's a classic. I would credit it as the movie that, if it weren't for this movie, I don't think superhero movies would exist now. If it weren't for this movie, right? And the thing about this movie that I love is that I just think that Christopher Reeve is perfect as Superman. It's not my favorite Superman, my favorite live action Superman. I would have to say that's Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois. That's another topic for another video. But Christopher Reeve, I just think does a really good job at portraying this character that is hopeful. And it's like, even it inspires people, and you can even see that because one of my favorite scenes from this movie is, I think a lot of people point to see that a lot, that's because it's really good. It's him saving a cat from a tree. It's just like Superman just doesn't only do like the big world, like the big world destroying, world ending stuff, right? He helps people, even if it's like these tiniest of crimes. He still helps people. And that's what I love about Superman, because Superman is an inspiring character at the end of the day. He inspires you to do good, and that's just one of those things that makes that character shine. And I can't wait for Superman Legacy, because it feels like James Gunn genuinely has an understanding of that character and what that character should be. And it's definitely an older movie. It's definitely an outdated movie, but it's still a movie that I will always go back and love and enjoy. But it's still in the honorable mentions. It's still under Top Gun Maverick at the end of the day. I just don't enjoy it as much as a lot of these other movies. I promise you we're going to get out of honorable mentions in a moment, but next up, we're just going to spoil it. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, of course, I had to put some stuff that I personally love. I can't just, put things with like a deeper meaning for me at least, or like an emotional connection. I just had to put some stuff that I just enjoy, and I love Star Wars. I don't love all Star Wars, but I still love a lot of Star Wars. Episode 3 is my favorite. I think the thing about the prequel trilogy that people don't understand or people don't like is, I feel like Anakin as a character, and the writing throughout the trilogy is, I'll admit, it's not great, but I feel like one of the things that the prequel trilogy gets bashed for is the acting, and specifically Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. I actually don't mind it, because the way I see it is that Anakin's this kid that was raised by the Jedi, doesn't have proper social skills, the way I see it, and it's like his acting feels like more strained, and like he's putting on an act, that's kind of my headcanon for it. When I think about it, I just love it. I really do. I do think that Hayden Christensen did a good job in the role of being this character that is kind of being forced into the dark side. It's weird. But and then outside of that, you have the lightsaber choreography is great. Order 66 is such an iconic scene. I feel like you get Darth Vader, you get the Mustafar fight, which is absolutely insane. It is, in my opinion, the perfect Star Wars movie. I think there are other movies that are objectively better, once again, like Empire or even Rogue One for that matter, but I still enjoy this movie the most out of all of them. It's the movie that I go back to the most when it comes to Star Wars, but it still goes under Top Gun Maverick. Alright, next up, The Hate You Give. Now, I think there are 3 movies on this list that have actively made me cry. This is one of them. Normally, if I say a movie made me cry, it goes up. It goes high up. Not this one. Because as much as I love this movie, I enjoy the others more. It's actually one of the movies that I rewatched the least. I don't remember everything that happens in this movie, but I still love it. It's one of those movies that I watched for the first time. I think I just watched it on a whim when it was on Max, like a couple of years ago at this point, during the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protest. And it's something I can relate to, being a black person, African American person in America. Being a black person in America is hard. It's tough. It's and all the protests and stuff is just like it. Just seeing it around me and knowing that this stuff could happen to me is really scary. I'm not gonna go into anything like extremely political because that's just not what I want to do. That's not what this channel is for. But this movie made me cry because it kind of made me think about my life and made me think about what it is like living here in America, and how as a black person that is like, as much as I want to believe that racism is gone, right? It's still a risk I gotta take every day going out that door, because you never know what might happen. You never know what kind of people you come across, right? And it's one of those things where it does make you think. That's what made me cry. Of course, acting's great, stories is great, but just because of that is why I love it. But it at the moment, I think it goes into still really good because because of that. It's a movie that I tend not to go back to that often, but it's still really really good. All right, let me talk about my favorite franchise of all time, Harry Potter. Here's the thing, right? I love Harry Potter. I really do. I think Harry Potter is great. I read all the books. I read every single one of them. I read all. Fun fact: when I was first getting into the franchise, I read the books and then I went and watched the movie just because I could. The thing about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, I think Goblet of Fire is just is. I think people put it bottom when it comes to Harry Potter movies. I don't know. I love a tournament arc. I'll just say now, I love a good tournament arc. If a tournament arc is good, I love it. I think Goblet of Fire does this tournament arc really well. I think this is the movie that I could absolutely just spout off by heart. Out of all these movies, this is the movie I remember the most because it's the movie that I've seen the most. I can spout off this movie by heart. I think kind of the Hermione, Ron, and Victor Crumb stuff was kind of meh, but for the most part, I think the movie is great. The Return of Voldemort was great. Seeing, you know, Harry's, Harry and Cedric fight Voldemort was still kind of gives me chills every time I watch it, because it's like that first time you see Voldemort and he just exudes such a powerful presence. Like he instantly kills somebody, and it's like, oh, this guy is serious. It is like it kind of sets the scene for what's to come. And from this movie on, really Prisoner of Azkaban on, but specifically, I feel like the turning point was this movie where it just got darker and darker and darker. Which I mean, some of that's great. Then you get like Half Blood Prince, and it's like a problem. But I just love everything about this movie. But one of my issues with this movie is the fact that I know it's not the best movie, and I just enjoy the book more. That's one of the issues with this movie. I enjoy the book more. The book is better. That's just is how it is, and that's kind of what brings it down for me, because I think the book is better than the movie. And I think while it is my favorite series of all time, I feel like the Harry Potter movies, I just don't think are like objectively better than any of these movies, and are movies that I like. While I have rewatched this movie the most, I think I would still, at this very point in time, rewatch all of these movies over it. That's why I put Goblet of Fire at probably the bottom of the list at the moment. Still great, still love it with all my heart. Still my personal favorite Harry Potter movie, but at the moment it is at the bottom of the list. All right, next up. None of these movies are going to be in honorable mentions from now on. We're actually going to get into the good, the best of the best. The Banshees of Inesherin. I just clocked what three of the next movies are. Banshees of Inesherin. This is the second movie on this list that made me cry. And if you're looking at it, if you've seen all these movies, you would probably know the third. But this is the second movie on this list that made me cry. Because it's a story about a friendship falling apart and what that could lead to, and how far people could go for their friends. And it's a story that I can get behind because I've had to deal with a friendship falling apart, multiple friendships falling apart. Early 2020, I pretty much lost 95% of my friends that I had. I was kind of just left with one. And specifically one of my best friends, we were neighbors for a long time, just had a falling out, and it was bad. It was really bad, and I was very upset. But it's a movie that kind of hit me because it's like not as extreme as this movie, but it is definitely something I have been through myself. And it's something that it's something that I personally relate to. I think the acting by Colin Farrell specifically is so good. Just playing this character that's trying to understand why this is happening and why his friend just won't talk to him. And it's so good, and it's a movie by the end that I was crying because I just couldn't believe everything that happened, and it just felt so real. So, Inesherin, Banshees of Inesherin, peak fiction for me. It's my second favorite movie of all time, me personally. Next up, oh god, I saw this movie about 2 weeks ago. This is Sunshine, right? A movie that came out in 2007 by Danny Boyle, I think. Yeah, it's a movie by Danny Boyle. It came out in the year 2007. I don't know how to say it. I think out of every movie of this list, this is the most perfect movie that I've watched. And I kind of looked up some criticisms of this movie afterwards. I know a lot of people don't like the third act of this movie. I still really love it. I love it for a lot of reasons. One of the things about Sunshine, at the beginning of the movie, is like there's these people trying to save humanity, and you can see that everybody has flaws. Everybody's trying to live, and the whole Kaneda thing. It's like when Kaneda, I'm not gonna spoil the movie, because I really want you to see it. But I think it's a really good job at showing tension, and what just being human leads to, like being human, wanting to save people, and how that could screw you over and mess you up. And then you get to the third act of the movie, and it sort of turns into a horror movie. Which I'm not a massive fan of horror movies, but I think it kind of works for this movie. It's like a horror psychological thriller, and I feel like one of the things I love is like how that's like the epitome of how everything can go wrong, how some actions, some moral decisions that you make, while you might think that it's it's right in the moment, it could lead to things that could be very, very unfortunate. And it just kind of shows that, and I think it just shows how they're all regretting their decisions. And it's a movie that I personally enjoy a lot. I think it's the most perfect movie on this list. It's not my favorite movie on this list, unfortunately, so I'm going to put it under the Banshees of Inesherin for now. But I think this movie is just absolutely amazing in every way, shape, or form. It's a perfect sci-fi movie. It's really good. And I would strongly urge you to go watch it. It's so fun. Not fun. Fun's not the word I'm looking for here. It's not a fun movie. It's so good. It's such a good time to watch, and have an existential crisis afterwards. It's a perfect movie in my opinion. Next up, another peak fiction movie, The Matrix. Now, I actually haven't done a quick review on every single movie on this list. In fact, the top two at the moment I have not done a quick review on, and it stays that way because The Matrix is going right there. Why am I putting it there? This is my favorite movie of all time. There's just no way else to say it. This is my favorite movie of all time. I love The Matrix. I've not made a quick review on it yet. I just haven't felt the need to. I feel like I've talked about it enough in the past. I love The Matrix. Love the story. Love what it stands for. Love the action. Action still blows my mind to this day, even if it's older. Revolutionary action. Bullet time is phenomenal. And the amount of references, like how iconic this movie is, references that you get later. Now, does the later movies does the later movies in the franchise ruin this movie a bit? Yeah, for sure. Reloaded wasn't as good. I think Reloaded is still a good, decent movie. Reloaded, but it's still not as good as The Matrix. Revolutions is hot garbage. And Resurrections, while I enjoyed I enjoyed more than a lot of other people did. I really did enjoy Resurrections. It's still not great. It still isn't great. But The Matrix, I think, is a movie that, from when I first saw it, I think I first saw this movie like 6-7 years ago at this point. I loved it. I still love it now. I still go back and give it at least a yearly rewatch, a couple of times a year, at the most. And it is still a movie that I absolutely adore to this day. Next up is our only two animated movies on this list. A Silent Voice. This is the last movie that has made me cry. The thing about A Silent Voice is that I know the manga's different. I haven't read it, but I know the manga's different. But I still enjoy it a lot. Because, this is a movie that made me want to learn sign language, which is what I'm doing right now. But, the idea of a bully trying to. The word I'm looking for is kind of atone for what he has done to this deaf girl in the past, and trying to make everything right, even though she's accepting of it, but everybody around them isn't, and it's that dynamic is so interesting, so compelling to me, and I just it's the ending of this movie with that the whole thing with the fireworks scene, if you know you know, and what it leads to, it's just so it makes me cry every time. And then even the bully over time learns to make friends and be comfortable around other people because of his childhood. He bullied somebody, and then things happen, and he just was kind of an outcast and kind of hated people. And when he starts making friends, it really is heartwarming, because you can see that the deaf girl is trying to forgive him. Even though if I remember correctly, she was kind of apprehensive at first, but of course, but trying to forgive him, and it's really good. It really spoke to me, and that's why I love it. It's going in the excellence here. Princess Mononoke. I think this is the most beautifully animated movie ever made, in my opinion. I've seen a decent amount of Studio Ghibli movies. Studio Ghibli movies. This is the most beautifully animated movie I've ever watched. I just love everything about this movie. I think the story. I think the thing about the movie. This is one of those movies on this list that I just genuinely can't point out everything wrong. The story is great. It is a relatively shorter movie, but the world building is surprisingly really well done. With all the demons and gods and stuff. It's not demons and gods per se, but what that story kind of leads into, and for tradition, and the towns and the people. It's all great. Not gonna lie, a lot of the people in one of the towns that the main character goes to are ridiculously horny for no reason, but that's another topic for another day. And I think this just overall, I think the movie. I mean, it's the most perfect movie. I said Sunshine is probably the most perfect movie on this list. I think this is the second most perfect movie on this list. It's one of those movies where I just can't point out anything wrong with it, unfortunately, right? Unfortunately for the people for you watching, wanting me to say something bad about it, I can't. It's one of those movies I just can't point out a flaw. I just happen to enjoy the other movies more, which is why it's going in the excellence here. Next up, Kill Bill. This is a movie I wasn't expecting to make the list, actually. When I went back and looked at some of my Letterboxd stuff, I wasn't expecting Kill Bill to make the list. I wasn't even thinking about it, and I saw it. I was like, man, I love Kill Bill. I've seen it a bunch of times. It is not one of those movies that come to my mind instantly, but I really do love Kill Bill. I really do. I just think the action is phenomenal. It's just everything about this movie is phenomenal. I actually can't even tell if this is volume 1 or volume 2. They're both phenomenal. They're both really, really good. I think they're both just as good as each other. Quentin Tarantino does a really good job in this movie with choreography. It feels like a comic book. It feels like an anime. Is another thing I love about this movie. It feels like an anime. You see those comic book and anime references scattered through all out the movie, and it's just a movie that is one of those movies that just makes me have fun. It's like a have fun movie. A lot of these movies you see so far I would argue aren't really have fun movies. They are movies that have a deeper meaning, or besides Dead Reckoning Part 1, not Dead Reckoning Part 1, Ghost Protocol. All of them have a deeper meaning to them. But Kill Bill is one of those just sit down, relax, have fun kind of movie, and that's why it goes right here. right in the middle of the list. John Wick Chapter 4, I think, is one of the greatest action movies ever made. I know I'm saying this once again. I'm recording this less than 24 hours before I see Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is one of the greatest action movies ever made. I think the story just is levels above, the past movies. One of the things I love the John Wick franchise for is its world building. Honestly, the world building is just absolutely amazing in the John Wick franchise. It's something that I've tried to emulate in my own stories. And the action and choreography, of course, is a John Wick movie, but in this movie, it's leveled up. Like this one fight, like in the beginning with the nunchucks, and it's like Keanu Reeves and Donnie Yen fighting. It's such a phenomenal sequence. Of course, I can't talk about this movie without talking about the stairs. Need not say more. And then that final fight leading into the end is just such a satisfying conclusion to this movie and this franchise. And if they make a fifth one, I'll be excited to see it, but I'll also be kind of disappointed. But I think John Wick Chapter 4 is absolutely incredible. Cinematography and some of the shots during this movie are crazy, and it's a movie that I really love. And I think it goes right about here. Next up, The Suicide Squad. Now, it's all about movies that I just have a lot of fun with Kill Bill. Suicide Squad is the definition of that. Of course, it has its emotional beats and emotional moments. James Gunn is really, really good at that. It's another reason why I'm excited for Superman. And, of course, Guardians happened earlier, a couple of months ago. James Gunn is really good at putting these, obscure characters that nobody knows about. And just making them emotional and making them feel relatable and human, right? And it's just something that I can get behind. And of course, it's a hilarious movie. It's a very violent movie, but this is absolutely one of those comfort movies. This is a comfort movie for me. This is a movie I know I can go back to at any point in time, and I'll just love it. Like, right? Like I watched it for the first time in a little bit. A couple months ago, before I think I saw Guardians 3. I hadn't seen it in a bit, so when I watched it before Guardians 3, I completely forgot how good of a movie it is, and just how much I enjoyed it. I watched Peacemaker right after, and it was a lot of fun. It was really good. Suicide Squad, phenomenal movie. Really loved it, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for where James Gunn takes the DCU. Alright, last up we have The Batman. I have a story to tell with this movie. I have been a fan of DC Comics since 2010, 2011. I must have been 3 or 4 years old at that point. I've been watching, a lot of those animated cartoons, specifically Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Teen Titans and Batman the Animated Series. All cartoons I grew up loving, and I see Batman in these animated shows, some of these animated shows, and it's like Batman is a detective, and it's the coolest thing because he could solve any crime, and it's so cool to see this character that is like so smart, right, but also so good at fighting, and so cool. And I've always loved Batman growing up. And so when I finally got around to when I was allowed to watch the Batman movies when I was like 6 or 7, I was allowed to watch a couple of the Batman movies. He's not that same character, right? It's like he's more of like a crime fighter, right? He's just like fighting crime. There are definitely sprinkles of being a detective in there, but for the most part, it's just like somebody makes loud noise, or just like somebody in Gotham is being very loud about what they're doing, or blah blah blah, and it's just Batman chasing them and stopping them, right? And then you get to the Batman, right? And not to say any other of those Batman movies are bad, right? Like, of course, The Dark Knight is absolutely phenomenal. It didn't make the list, unfortunately, but it is absolutely phenomenal. It'd probably be like top 20. But then you get like the Batman, and I feel like it's the Batman movie that I've been waiting for. It's the Batman movie that I've been waiting for, right? It's this character that's actually doing detective work. You can see him doing, like, a lot of the movie is just him doing detective work, and finding the serial killer. Matt Reeves just does a really good job at world building and cinematography. Of course, the director of cinematography or photography or whatever did a phenomenal job with this movie. The shots are absolutely amazing. But Matt Reeves, what he did with the writing, and I say writing, I say specifically Gotham City. That's my favorite part of this movie, Gotham City, because Gotham City feels like a character, which I can describe. That's always how I like to describe Gotham. Gotham feels like its own character, you know. It's like the rest of the world does not want to go to Gotham. Everybody knows what Gotham is, what Gotham's about. Gotham has its own vibe, and it's filled with criminals, and you have this one vigilante psychopath in a bat costume running around and beating people up. But specifically in this movie, Gotham feels alive, right? And because you have all these politicians, the serial killer, these mob bosses that aren't, having their origin story mid-movie. They're already established characters for the most part, and that's what I love about this movie, because this movie isn't an origin story for really anybody. Everybody's already a pretty much established character for the most part, established in their role and what they're supposed to be doing. Even Batman to a certain extent. Not too much, which is why I'm excited to see where they take him in part 2, because I do kind of want to see that, him balance out Bruce Wayne and Batman a little better. But every character in this movie is established. Gotham feels like its own character. The mystery, a lot of times, could be kind of was great. If there's one thing I would improve on this movie, it's definitely the action and the choreography. I don't think it's the greatest, even Batman standards, but still really, really good. And it's just overall, this is the Batman movie that I've wanted for the last, Lord knows how long, 12 years at this point. And it's the Batman movie. It's my favorite comic book movie of all time, and it goes right here. It's so good, and I enjoy it a lot. And that is it for the video. All right, my God, I've been sitting here for way too long, just figuring out tears and going through everything and talking about it. My throat hurts. I need some water. Before I go, give a shout out to some other movies that just barely missed the cut. I think that would probably be in that top 20. Some movies like 2 movies from last year specifically, All Quiet on the Western Front and Everything Everywhere All at Once, both phenomenal movies that I love so much, and I really want to go back and rewatch them. Jurassic Park and Predator, of course, are classic movies that I love. Just really, really, really good movies. Unfortunately, I would rather watch these movies more. And like I said earlier, The Dark Knight. Dark Knight's phenomenal. Even Infinity War, to a certain extent, Infinity War, Spider-Verse, and stuff like that. This great movies overall. I love them. I really want to go back and watch them. Oh, also Nimona. Nimona is really good. I want to do a quick review on that eventually. Nimona is really good. Thank you for watching the video. I'll try to do a lot stuff other than tier list. Not other than tier list, other than quick reviews at some point. Just kind of break out of this, expand the content library in a way. Thank you for watching. Comment your favorite movies down below if you end up seeing this. Bye.